Welcome to the Data Friday. My name is Marco Schimke. I'm the CEO of Scalefree. We run a session here every Friday to allow you, the audience, to ask questions about Data Vault, cloud computing, data-driven applications, data mining, artificial intelligence, all in this area essentially. All the questions I can answer here essentially. And yeah, you can use the chat here in the client. You can use the Q&A function in the client. You can raise your virtual hand. Don't raise your physical hand because I don't see that. But if you raise your virtual hand, I can see it here and give you a voice, and you can ask a question. Or I'll show you a form after today's session where you can also submit your questions. And they give me some prep time essentially for preparing a little slide. Today I created 3 slides actually. If you receive multiple questions, I will be cherry picking. Yeah, if there would be no questions at all, I will talk about the cluster. Haven't done much, so thanks for sending me questions again. So cool. So let me just share today's question with you. That's about the unit of work, which is essentially a topic in the bootcamp class. And let me just read this here. It would be good to refresh topic of the unit of work. What is the information I'd be losing if I split wider links into smaller pairs? Driving key into key 1 and key 2 and so on. So yeah, if you split essentially a driving key, that's another story. But if you split multiple keys or multiple hub references in a relationship into multiple links essentially. I can think of technical setup where I have multiple links and effectivity satellites, and I should be able to get the same results to the point in time. What information gets exactly lost if I split links? So let's go through an example very similar to the one in the bootcamp. Let's say we have a relationship in the source data set between customer, store, and product. Customer, store, go into stores and purchase products. And so we have customer A and B, stores K, L, M, and product X, Y, and Z. And if you normalize this, because that's what you're doing, you could split this link into multiple links, or this relationship into multiple links, but then you essentially normalize this relationship. And just create this before the session here today. So let's go through this in a bit shorthand. So we got customer A going into store. Okay, customer A to K, that's first row, A to L, the second row, B to M is the next row, and then A to K is already known, so we don't create another link here. Sorry. So that's fine. And then we have the relation between customer and product, A to X, that's the first one, A to X, we already know, so we skip that row. Then we have B to Y, that's this row here, and A to Z. So the normalization looks good. And now, whenever I feel not sure if my target model is correct, I always perform what we call the Jedi test. We try to reconstruct based on a target model on the right here. We try to reconstruct the original file one-to-one. And if you can prove to me that you're not losing any columns and not any rows, but also not artificially generating any rows, then it's good. You prove that you essentially have a consistent way of storing your data in a target model. Let's try this. So I'm taking those 2, let me just double check this. Yeah, it works. Okay, because I had a correction here. So that's correct. So it's just like in the previous slide. So when we go through this, AK joined with X becomes this row here. And then I'm joining A to L with A to X again, gives me this row here, ALX. And if I join AL with the next row, AZ, then I get essentially ALZ. And this row didn't exist in the source data set. And that's the inconsistency here. That's what we want to prevent essentially. Now, when does it happen and when can't it happen? Let's say that. So, and how we deal with this situation essentially. So first of all, I can't fully tell you when this problem occurs. So there's no way of me looking at a relationship on the left side here and telling you, hey, you can't split this link here. I looked it up in mathematical algebra, relational algebra, and essentially what they do is they essentially perform this normalization and denormalization, the Jedi test, just with relational algebra essentially. That's it. So yeah, they prove essentially based on the new entities that they derived from or normalized from the original entity. If they denormalize them again, that if the denormalized result matches the original entity, then there is no problem. So fine, we do this here essentially with data sets. So it doesn't help me. So what I know for sure is when you have a driving key, when your relationship is identified by a subset of the business keys in relationship, And those of you who know me know I'm not a big fan of the driving key, but there's one scenario where I have to use it. So in this scenario where you have where you have a subset of the business keys identifying the relationship, you can't separate the components of the driving key. That's for sure. That's why I know for sure, because then you end up in this scenario here. Driving key is another issue, maybe another good question. Doesn't mean if I don't like the driving key, doesn't mean that I don't talk about it, because there is one scenario where I have to use it. So that's a hate-love relationship. So driving key is an issue when you split the driving key. Then I know for sure you have a unit of work problem. But for the other business keys, I don't know, to be honest. So I always perform the Jetta test, or what I'm doing actually is I try not to split this link. So in the raw data vault, I always keep these hub references together. And only in the worst case, it means that for every source table, for all the hub references coming or derived from the source table, we have a unit of work link. And we call this unit of work link, for example, in Flow BI, it's really called unit of work link. And that's what we do. So it's the safe bet in the raw data vault, and in the business vault, I start splitting the satellite. Splitting the link, because then I can't do anything wrong. I mean, sure, you can do a lot of stuff wrong in the business vault, but at least I have my consistent data from the raw data vault, and I can fix the business vault if I made a mistake, essentially, without reloading the whole data warehouse. So that's what my suggestion is. Keep all the hub references from the source table, from the source entity together all the time. Call this maybe a unit of work link and split it later. Well, there's one comment here. What if I have to split, right? What if we have to split? First of all, if the technical setup says maybe you have some descriptive data which describes not the granularity of the combined link, because the more hub references you have, the finer is the granularity. And that would mean that if you attach a satellite here, you have a lot of redundant data in the satellites. First of all, maybe you can live with it, because I wonder, the data is in the source. It's attached to this as additional columns here to this relationship. And I might tend to actually capture it like this. But let's say there's an issue and you want to capture the descriptive data at the granularity where it belongs. Let's phrase it like this. In this case, there's nothing against having additional links. Having this unit of work link that captures the unit of work of the source table. And then you have additional links where you do the splits here like this on the page, but these links are optional and they are used to capture additional descriptions on the granularity of those links here, essentially. That would work, because for producing any targets, I could still use this unit of work link, essentially, right? The other option is, let's say you have such a wide link where you can't technically have a link that's so wide. So I'll give you an example. We have one client where they called us up. They had more than 16 or 20 hub references in a link, and they couldn't produce an index on a combined index on the hub references. So because the index size had a limit, the row size in the index had a limit. And their problem was something else. They had no reference tables, and that's why I had very wide links. But let's assume you have a technical limit for how many hub references you can have in a link. What about this? In my opinion, there's one link missing. If you have to split the link, then there's one more link missing. What you have is customer to store, customer to product, but what about product to store? That's also a relationship we can derive from this relationship here, right? Store to product. If you add this link, if you have all the three links, then you can use all three links with the effectivity satellites to produce a relationship again downstream that matches this one here. But you need three links. And my comment is, because I'm always looking for a efficient raw data vault, and my take on this is that the more links you have, the more entities you have in general, the more entities you have, the more complex the model gets, and the more joins you will have to query your data set. And that's fully true here. I mean, compare having a solution with three links, two bidirectional links here, and having one link with three hub references. Here you need more joins, here less. And that's why this model becomes more efficient, having only one link with three hub references over three links with two hub references each. They can be more efficient. So that's why I would still tend to this unit of work link, essentially. But as a backup, We can also split, but then you have to capture all the combinations essentially, and use it. If your power users, if your developers or users downstream, your data scientists only query your data warehouse by using those two links and missing the store to product link in the queries, you get the inconsistency again in your query result, right? You get this one extra relationship that didn't exist in the source data. So it's highly risky, in my opinion, compared to the unit word link, where I capture all the hyperreferences coming from the same data feed as a whole relationship in one link only. And then I split in the business vault if required. That's the safe bet, essentially. All right. Cool question. If you have a question like this, use the form behind this URL here, sfr.ee/Friday. That's where you can submit your questions. And and then we'll pick it up from there. And if you want to ask questions about DBT and Webscape, I'm not a tool expert, so go to scalefree.to/webinars. That's where you find a monthly session on these tools, DBT and Webscape at the moment, where our tool experts talk about these tools and in a very similar format, essentially. And if you can't wait until next Friday to submit questions for the Data Friday, use the Data Innovators Exchange. That's a forum-style community where you can sign up and ask questions all the time. And there's people in Europe and people in Australia that gives us a 24-hour response time, essentially, except on weekends. And that gives you much faster answers, essentially. Cool. Thanks for joining today. The weather here in Germany is perfect, so it will be a nice weekend. So we're looking forward for it. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.